this point is that I suspect that the alternator on this car is dead, or something is wrong with it. Well, it's pretty much the same thing, I guess. It's not charging the battery, that's the bottom line. So I need to figure out what exactly is going on. How to replace your alternator. So I guess, well, let's do that. In this case, it's a N52 engine. So N51 and N52 is the same. This car is E90 325. So whatever is similar to this setup is going to be the same. So let's get to it. We will have to remove some things here, get to the alternator, get to the point where we can remove the alternator, disconnect it from the engine and remove it out of the car. So let's get some tools and start removing things that are in the way. So I guess the first thing that you have to do is to disconnect the battery, just to be safe. Just remove the negative on the battery, remove the negative terminal on the battery, and that effectively will turn all of the electronics on off. The second thing to do is to remove your air filter box. That's what I'm doing currently. Remove the air filter box, store it safely. The next step, once you have the air filter box and everything out of the way, you have to remove the drive belt. To do that, you have to release the belt tensioner, and for that you use a T60 Torx. Once you release the belt tensioner, you can remove the belt like so. You don't have to remove it all the way, but I suppose you need to get it out and inspect it. So once the belt is out of the way, you can verify that your alternator is spinning and all. Ooh. Okay, I have discovered something. Once the belt is out of the way, you can freely spin the alternator by hand. So here's two things that I discovered. First of all, the pulley is not turning straight, it wobbles. This pulley should not wobble whatsoever. It should run as straight as possible. The thing number two is all this noise that the alternator makes. It sounds extremely suspicious, and I think the alternator is dead. So in order to remove the alternator itself, you have to disconnect this plug here that just pulls out like that. There is a positive terminal on the bottom, which is, I think, is 13 millimeters. So this is a 13 millimeter nut, which you remove like so. So this is positive. Make sure you keep it away from any ground or anything like that. If you didn't disconnect your battery, if you did disconnect your battery, you shouldn't really care if it touches anything it finds that is ground. And then you have to remove these 4 bolts. Those bolts being aluminum implies that they are one-time use only, so once you remove them, you will have to discard them and replace them with a set of new bolts. So these bolts are T12 Torx. Come on, get out. Kind of doesn't move. That's one long aluminum bolt. Two. Three. Here's the last one. Once you remove this one, your alternator is free. And once you remove all the bolts, your alternator is free to come out. And be inspected. This one is a value 180 amp, and this sucker is making noises. I wonder why this pulley is not spinning straight. That's really concerning. At this point I may replace the belt tensioner, the belt. So the next step would be to reassemble all this with new components, or reinstalled new components, and that should pretty much do it. So everything is back where it belongs, or how it should be. All the components are in place, everything is reattached, reconnected, and all the screws and bolts are tight. Nothing is forgotten. So I suppose it's time to do a test start and see if our new alternator is actually working. So let's start this up. So let's do a test start and see what kind of lights we still have on. Well, there's a bunch of weird stuff going on. So let's do the start and see what happens. Well, I guess I should do a reset of those warning lights. I don't see the battery light, and I guess that's a good sign. I suppose I can check the voltage with a voltmeter and just make sure that we have the alternator voltage, not just the battery. So connecting our voltmeter to this positive terminal is reading 14.4 something volts, which is not the battery voltage but what the alternator outputs, and that means that our system is working, and that means our charging system is working, the battery is getting charged, the car is not running off the battery only, and all that is good news. So we fixed the problem. All that is left is to reset all the warning lights that don't go away by themselves, and basically wait for the next problem to happen. So everything seems to be in a ship shape. Belts are good, tensioner is good, the alternator is spinning, and there is no wobble of the pulley. So I guess the issue has been resolved. The charging system is working the way it should be working. Well, this is it, at least for this problem. So here is all the parts that I have replaced. There is a idler pulley, or a roller, whatever you call it. There is a tensioner, and there is the culprit of all these headaches. This is the old alternator, and since I was removing all those things, I also got a new belt in place. So if you're doing the alternator, it kind of makes sense to replace all these parts at the same time, because you're there. And this is the strangest thing that I've ever seen. I'm sure this pulley can be replaced, and the voltage regulator with brushes, I'm sure they are worn out, and those can be also replaced. So the bearings kind of sound dry. This might be just a piece of junk.